Hey folks, Kilt-Man here, Kilt-Man! At your services, how are you all? I hope you're doing very, very well. Yes, as you can see, some of the boys here, some of my little brood, have got themselves all dressed up, got their hoods up to fight off that cold weather, that wintry weather from a David Cronenberg movie. Yes, it's Cronenberg, the auteur of body horror. Always filming his stuff out in the wintry wilds of Toronto and Montreal. Ugh. Anyway, folks, this is now episode 7 of our One Good Scare for Halloween series. And I asked you all what your most devastating, disturbing, scary sequence in a movie was, and let me know and I'll discuss it. And a few people, in fact, quite a few people, mentioned The Brood. At this point, it would have been really good of me to have written down a list of who had requested this. And you know what? I forgot to do it. But there's a few of you out there. And I totally agree with you. I think The Brood, directed by David Cronenberg, released in 1979, is a magnificent horror movie. Quite possibly the scariest film that David Cronenberg has made. It was only his third major motion picture after Shivers and Rabid, and just before doing Scanners and Videodrome. And then The Dead Zone, mainstream movie, Stephen King adaptation, The Dead Zone, opened the doors for Cronenberg to a much wider audience and a far better critical reception than he'd had thus far. Because he was just known as, just a goremeister. Great ideas, very ambitious, very scientific sort of, plots going on there. But it was just a gore fest every time. That's kind of how he was written off. I mean, a few critics did like him and championed him. I loved him. I loved Shivers for its nudity. Barbara Steele was in there. And you had these parasites wriggling about under people's skin. What a great effect. Now you look at it, it looks a bit more primitive. But for its time, wow. And then Rabid, oh yes, with the underarm penis, Marilyn Chambers, and a sort of a rabies take on zombies. And I thought it was great, loved it. And then The Brood came out, and The Brood is a devastating, hugely harrowing, emotional, disturbing story of family collapse, familial trauma. The time he made this was his retaliation to watching Kramer versus Kramer, a film about divorce and custody battles. And Cronenberg, who had gone through a very, very heated, acrimonious divorce and custody battle, which left him rocked and reeling and full of spite and rage and hatred. He saw Kramer versus Kramer and thought, that's not how it worked for me. That's not what happened in my experience. I tell you what, I'll make a movie about what happened to me. Oh dear God. So he came out with this, The Brood, as I say, 1979. And he took body horror again, which was his major he was the founder of body horror pictures, really. And he took his kind of crazy, parasitic, strange, viral ideas to a whole new level. Oh dear God, didn't he just? So, the story of The Brood. You have Frank Carver, played by Art Hindle, who is going through a terrible separation and acrimonious sort of custody battle with his estranged wife, Nola, played by Samantha Eggar, to win custody of their gorgeous little blonde moppet, Candy. And but Nola is a very disturbed woman. She has suffered childhood abuse herself from her own mother, and in later years that's taken the form of abusing possibly their own child, Candy. So despite their split up and separation and the forthcoming custody battle, she's took herself off under her own sort of guidance to this experimental, unorthodox psychiatrist, Dr. Hal Raglan, played by Oliver Reed. Yes, you heard that right. Oliver Reed, the great bawdy, beer-swilling, whiskey-addled, devil-may-care, complete enfant terrible Oliver Reed. But also, added to that list of skills, a wonderful actor, as he most certainly is in this. And he is the author of a book called The Shape of Rage, and his unorthodox approach and experimentation with psychology is psychoplasmics. I don't know what it means either. But what he does, he has a process where, a bit like sort of these hidden away, isolated rural cult enclaves, he'll take his patients into this sort of backwoods setting, shacks and dormitories and state-of-the-art sort of scientific research labs, that sort of thing. But it's way back out the city where he can preside over this place like the cult messiah that his patients seem to revere him as. And his processes involve some form of hypnotism, where he will assume the role of the antagonists for our poor protagonists, the patients that he's got. He will become the abusive father, the abusive husband, maybe the daughter, and he'll bring forth their inner rage, what's shaped them and disturbed them. But in so doing, in this process, he does seem to bring out a physical manifestation of that rage. So as we're introduced to him at the start, doing a seminar with one of his favoured patients, William, I think his name is, who has father issues. Oliver Reed, Dr. Hal Raglan, portrays the father, and he's insulting to the son. He's terrible. He said, "We should have called you Michelle." And his name's Michael. He said, "Michael, we should have called you Michelle because you're weak. You're just weak." But he's making, the point of it is he's making the patient go through the tunnel of their angst and their trauma, but go through it, come out the other side, and you'll be recovered. It might be a lengthy process, a very expensive one as well, because this guy's not exactly crying out for wealth. But the physical manifestation could be, in this particular case on Michael, is warts and pustulent spots and things, growths. But when he embraces him and makes him finally cry, he wipes his hands across the guy's face and the warts are gone, And is it trickery? Is he a charlatan? No, he's not. Because as is the case with most of what Cronenberg characters aspire to be, experimental, viral control, bacteriology, it all works, except there's always a fly in the ointment. You see what I did there? There's a fly in the ointment. Jeff Goldblum in The Fly as Professor Dr. Seth Brundle. His teleportation device works. It works perfectly. It revolutionised travel and the world as we know it. But a pesky little fly gets in there. Oh, it all turns to rat shit. Or fly shit. But, so again, Dr. Raglan's processes, his methods do work. But, as I say, Nola is a very troubled woman. And she wants Candice back. And she also wants Frank, her husband, back. But Frank doesn't want anything to do with her because he knows that she is abusive towards their daughter. And the daughter goes there for weekend visits with their mother. But when he collects her one particular time, Frank he sees that she's got wounds, bite marks and scratches all over her back. So he thunders back in to see Dr. Raglan. It's like, she's not coming back here again. No, your treatment's not working. I don't want her to see her mother ever again. And Dr. Raglan, Oliver Reed's well, you can't do that because it's already, we set the parameters of this whole treatment. It's all legally bound. She sees her daughter every weekend. That's the way it is. If you want to fight this in the courts, you can, but we'll win. The mother always wins. That was the era that was in. I don't suspect that it's changed too much. I think the mother is always the one that gets the main precedence as far as the law is concerned. So, anyway. At the same time as this conflict is taking place, and poor Frank's trying to deal with his troubled daughter, who's played by, I can't remember her name. something Hines. Oh, I don't know. Cindy Hines, I think, plays the girl. And we will discuss her performance in a bit. It's exceptionally worthwhile discussing. And but at the same time as all this, we become aware of some horrible murders. And these murders appear to be committed by disgusting looking, I would say deformed, but they're malformed creatures. Children-sized, dressed in hoods and snow parkas and jackets, but with these horrible, misshapen faces. And they are the epitome of rage. They beat to death Nola's mother during when she's babysitting for Candy. Cindy Hines. Frank's off working. He's an architect or restorer of buildings or something like that. Anyway, and but while Juliana is the mother-in-law's name, the grandmother, and she's separated from her husband as well. We learn she's had a string of lovers as well. But and she's fond of the old tipple. In fact, she's drinking J&B Scotch. J&B, which I've discovered after Macready drinking it in the thing and me loving it too. There's a bottle of it over there as it happens. This is not that. This is just bog standard grouse. But I loves it. I does. Cheers, y'all. But suddenly, watching a lot of these movies in the run to Halloween, a lot of people are drinking J&B. J&B was all the rage during the 70s anyway. And of course, The Thing and John Carpenter, when they made The Thing in 1982, they made it in 81. It's the tail end of the 70s, you know, so J&B was still all the rage for certain renegade, you know, whiskey swillers. And it's in this. But while Candy is there, there's all noises in the kitchen. So Juliana, the grandmother, goes out to investigate. To be honest, there's quite a lot of noise taking place out there, and we've seen something punching through a kitchen, behind a kitchen unit, punching through and then knocking all the pots and pans and plates and smashing bottles, milk and orange juice mingles on the floor. Oh, it looks disgusting. And then we see this misshapen hand pick up a meat tenderizer. A meat tenderizer, you say, Kilt-Man? What be that? It's a fucking steel mallet. When you're bashing, no jokes, when you're bashing your meat, bashing your beef to tenderize it, that's wielded. Juliana walks in there, sees the wreckage, manages to put down a glass of whiskey, turns around, and this hideous thing, looking not unlike one of these little critters here, leaps at her with a scream and smacks her to the ground, beats her to death with this hand of blood everywhere. Poor little Candy walks in there and obviously sees the body. Later on, because Juliana's husband, estranged husband, whose name I've forgotten again as well. So many names I'm going to forget throughout this video. But hey, you know, names is for tombstones, baby. And he flies in for the funeral. But as we learn, he's never stopped loving Juliana. So he and Frank, you know, got to arrange the funeral. People are flying in from Vancouver. He flew in from Halifax. So you can remember the places. There's people coming in from Vegas and, you know, somewhere, California, I don't know. And so it's going to be, how are we going to arrange all this? Listen, Frank, I think I might want to stay at the old house, their old marital home where Juliana was killed. I've still got the key. And she had a funny thing about not changing locks. I'll go and stay there. But in the meantime, he does go up to the Summer Free Institute, which is where Dr. Raglan runs his rural sort of practice with all these special patients, including Nola. And he demands to see Nola, because it's his daughter. And he's like, listen, do you know that her mother was murdered yesterday? Have you told her? And Raglan's, no. She's at a certain point in her therapy, which would be devastating, catastrophic if I told her. So, no, I haven't told her yet. I think you should go. You can't stop me from seeing my daughter. I'm afraid I can. I think it's best that you go. And in that way that Oliver Reed, his diction, the way that he enunciates his words, quietly full of menace and, you know, just complete sort of maliciousness. something sinister bubbling beneath the surface, and yet so impeccably polite at the same time. It's wonderful. So Barton Kelly, his name is, this is the father, or the grandfather of Candy, drives off, but he's distraught. He goes back to the old family home. Now, you have to remember that Juliana is the mother of Nola, and Juliana was accused of abusing Nola. And in their little therapy sessions, Nola is talking to Oliver Reed. Oliver Reed's playing the part of either the father or the mother, and she's accusing the father, why did you let her do that to me? She punched me, she kicked me, she threw me down the stairs, and you just looked the other way. But it's all part of this process of bringing out the inner rage to see you through the traumatic stages of your life. Yeah, well, that's the idea. But so Nola now knows, she's now getting angry again. This is crucial, this. So Barton Kelly goes back to the old family house, and he looks at the crime scene where her body was found, and he's going mad, and he's having a few of these as well. And he goes up to the old bed, and he just lies on the bed, and Juliana, you know. And it sounds a bit like Vincent Price from one of the old Edgar Allan Poe, Roger Corman pictures. You know, Juliana. And this hand suddenly comes out from under the bed. One of them bloody misshapen, one of these guys comes out. And there's a couple of snow globes, picks them up, beats the living shit out of poor Barton Kelly, smacks his brains out, pummels him to bits. In the meantime, Frank, our hero Frank, Art Hindle, turns up there. And he hears noises upstairs, runs upstairs, finds the body of his father-in-law. Oh God, what's going on? And then turns around, and there's one of these little hideous things is there, and it's still got one of the snow globes, and it fucking hurls it, and it manages to duck, and it goes right through the wall above his head, and then it runs out the room. He chases it into the bathroom. It goes for him again, and he's like, fighting this thing off, throws it to the deck, and he begins to gasp. It's dead. So we go then to the police station, where he's already been a couple of times, because don't forget, like, he's complaining about custody of his daughter. He doesn't trust Dr. Raglan. There's been 2 murders now closely associated to him, and his daughter has witnessed one of them. So this is highly traumatic stuff, of course. But he said, like, okay, because they've got the body now, and that was obviously what killed Juliana. It's now killed her estranged husband. So the 2 grandparents have been murdered, but we've got the body. It's dead. Right, case closed. But they go into the autopsy room, and he got this kind of strange doctor there. He's clearly enjoying, his job a bit too much, and he's showing the police detective and Frank, well, this is the killer. Okay, well, let's look at this thing now. And this is a scene which clearly seems to have inspired that, alien autopsy video. Yes, you know the one I mean. Yes, that video. It's very, very similar to that. And they discover that it's got no eyelids, it's got no teeth, but its gums and its cleft palate are almost like a beak, and will give it a sharp nip if used. It's got no ears. He reckons it can only see in black and white. The hands and feet are slightly webbed. There's no sexual organs. It's impossible to age the thing. But anything else you may have noticed? And the 2 were like, looking, come on, one of you's a detective, you should have spotted this. And Frank goes, it's got no navel. And the detective goes like, no what? No what? Cronenberg is not painting the police in a very good light here. It's got no navel. No what? Belly button. Which means the thing was not born conventionally. It was clearly born outside of a uterus. So it's like, I've got to do more, I've got to probe the innards of this thing, but I suspect there's no bone in this thing, it's all going to be cartilage. And but it's a horrific discovery. Well, at least it's all over now. Thank God for that. Now, in the meantime, of course, Candy is having problems, obviously, at the nursery school she's going to. And she's a lovely little kid. She's, as I say, we'll come on to the performances. She's a lovely little kid, but she's clearly traumatised. So the teacher is taking a very special interest in her. And she says to Frank, look, when he collects her, it's only the day after, there's been 2 deaths and all that, like Christ almighty. look, I want to speak to you, soon, soon. Now, she was actually at his house when the second murder took place, and then Frank goes off to view the body of the little creature perpetrator. But in the meantime, Nola has managed to make a phone call. She's meant to be in isolation as well, and she's getting specialised treatment, don't forget, from Dr. Raglan. But she makes a phone call to Frank. But of course, this teacher, Ruth, picks it up, and she's like, "Oh, you want to speak to Frank? Who's that?" "Oh, it's Ruth Mayer." Not Russ Mayer, that's a different personality altogether. Google it, check it out, for those who don't know. It's Ruth Mayer, the teacher from Candace's class. "Yes." "And you're in my house. What are you doing there?" "Oh, I see. You want Frank and Candy for yourself. You want to muscle me out." And then she starts threatening, "You bitch." And so Ruth puts the phone down. Jesus, so now, of course, it's funny how the mother has been killed, the father has been killed, Candy herself has been attacked and bruised. It's all the family unit. And now there's someone else who appears to Nola to be breaking into that family unit and is splitting them up. What do you think's going to happen next? Well, folks, we're talking about one good scare for Halloween. And again, as I've said throughout all of this series, the films I've described, people have mentioned one scene in particular. But when I come to discuss these movies, there's so much more than just that one scene. Spot the fatal flaw in my sort of series here. I was going to discuss one scene in particular, and I've blown it every time and discussed the entire friggin' movie. But hey, at least you're getting more than you expected. So everyone was talking about the scene at the end of this movie, which I am going to come on to, of course. But really, the scene that's the most troubling is what comes now. Because Nola is now clearly agitated about this teacher, and she now thinks that her daughter's going to be taken away from her by another woman with her ex-husband. So she's not happy about that. So what happens next? I better have a drink because it's hard to get through this scene. In a film that takes threat and jeopardy of children and violence to family members perpetrated by creatures that look, to all intents and purposes, like children, it's already very troubling and disturbing. But this next scene, two of these creatures go into the school, and of course, because they're dressed in all the snowy hoods are up and all that, and they infiltrate the class, and they're going to separate Candace from the rest of her schoolmates. But Ruth, the teacher, sees this, and the two kids, they pick up a hammer, they pick up scissors, and they leap on top of her and they beat her to death. But they do it in front of all these 4 and 5-year-old kids. I don't know about you folks, but Cronenberg directs this so brilliantly, but so really agitatingly in your face. And although I'm pretty certain that the close-ups of her bloodied body were done away from the kids, they didn't see any of that, but they do see the actress being beaten by two horribly malformed, mask-wearing little demons, and the shock and trauma on these kids' faces is indelible. It's indelible. Not only that, they kill her and they abduct little Candy. And when we see a scene of them escorting her down the snowy, windswept, sort of rural streets, heading back clearly to Dr. Raglan's, clinic out in the woods. The little girl being led by two, one either side, monsters. Now, folks, here you go. This was 1979, and I saw it in '79 as well. And then I saw it at the cinema, believe it or not, at a very young age. Very traumatizing it was too. And then I saw it again on home video. Then I saw it again at the film festival several years after that. And then I saw it again in the early 90s when I was living in Liverpool and a certain horrific murder took place not far from where me and Mrs. Kilt-Man in our younger days were living. And that would be the abduction and brutal murder of a young Jamie Bulger from Bootle, from the Strand shopping centre in Bootle. And the CCTV image was always of little Jamie Bulger being led away by two scroats who were only several years older than him, 10, 11, escorting him away. And my God, I saw that, and as bone chilling as that image from reality was, I thought, it's like The Brood. It's the little girl being abducted and walked away. Oh God. So now, you can, this argument about life imitating art, art imitating life and all this sort of thing. This film was made way back in the late 70s, so it's got no bearing on that. Although for the Jamie Bulger murder, they did massively come down on the film Child's Play 3. Because it appeared in the house of one of the kids that committed the atrocious murder. Tenuous linkage, of course, but anyway, we won't go into all of that. But the imagery is absolutely guaranteed to completely freeze your blood and just chill you to the bone. It's gut-wrenching stuff, and they take her back to the clinic. So she's been abducted. So Frank, there's the teacher that he actually did have. She was dead friendly towards his beleaguered family and the situation and plight he was in. Now she's been murdered and his daughter's gone. So in the meantime, he's made contact with other people who've been patients for Dr. Raglan, who have suffered. They've left the institute, the clinic, and they're troubled, and they want to take Raglan to court because Raglan's processes seem to bring out sort of disturbances on the flesh, because he's making their rage, their angst, their traumas manifest physically. And his belief clearly is that if you can make it physical, you can remove it. So this guy, whose surname is in reality Silverman, and he's also in the film Scanners. He's the crazy guy that lives in the giant head, in Scanners. And you guys will know him. If you're aficionados of Cronenberg's movies, you'll recognise this guy. And he plays a fella that's already, gone through the ropes with Hal Raglan. And he reveals to Frank, takes his scarf off, and he's got like this sort of great Cthulhu style sort of, nest of lymphatic tentacles growing out of his throat, which are almost like some kind of cancer. And he said, I want to take him to court. And our boy Frank wants to do the same because he thinks like, look, Frank is filling my ex-wife with poison, and he's when my daughter goes there, she's getting beaten and abused. And he clearly thinks it's Nola who's doing it, so I want to take him to court and all this. So anyway, now the teacher's gone, and we hear from the guy at the start, the one I called William, but his name's Michael. Or should we just call you Michelle, because you're so weak. You're a very weak man, aren't you? And he's been kicked out because now, in a bizarre twist, the Canadian police have very strange tactics, because they go to the press the day after when they found the body of the killer, and who killed Juliana, who's killed Barton Kelly, and they have the body and a big front page picture of this dwarf killer. It's like center of the page on the front page. In this country, we wouldn't get a picture of a body like that. That would not happen. But anyway, they do it. So Dr. Raglan sees this and says to Chris, his main sort of assistant, secretary, how many patients have we got here? 27. Get rid of them. Get them gone. We're closing down. What? We're going to have to close down. So what does he know about that body? What's frightened Dr. Raglan about that body? Get them all out of here. Get them shipped out. And you see them all getting put onto buses. And you see Michael, and he's, I can't go. I need my treatment. This is the guy from the start. This is the guy that is going to, at some point, he will meet the guy with the squid neck. And then he'll meet Frank. And he explains to Frank, but Nola, we all got kicked out, but your wife, Nola, She's kept in a special place. She's in the boathouse with all her kids. And Frank's like, what kids? Oh, all the disturbed kids that Raglan was treating as well. She's in charge of them. Oh, she's in charge of them. She's special her. He loves her. He just wants her. He doesn't want the rest of us. Kids at this rural clinic. And my bitch of an ex-missus. Right. Because his daughter's gone missing. So right, he legs it out there, gets in his car, thunders up into the air, the woods and the snow. Yes, it's cold. It's like all Cronenberg movies, it's sort of, there's a chilliness to it. And of course it's all empty now because he's kicked everybody out. And Raglan has been to see Nola again, and his little session has not gone well. Nola's angry, agitated and all this, and like he's finding out, like, look, you were angry with that teacher, Ruth Mayer. Oh, I've had a dream, she says, and like, she's no problem anymore. What do you mean she's no problem? He's waiting it out. Hang on a minute. Every time you get angry with someone, they end up getting killed. And now you're saying that, she's not a problem anymore. And he's seen a broken window. Because the boathouse is this lovely sort of huge barn with an upstairs attic part and a big dormitory, and she's downstairs. But he's seen upstairs, and there's a padlock on the door as well for the upstairs bit. I know you guys are way ahead of me. I know, and I'm just going through the motions here. And like, there's a padlock on the door. Oh, okay, it's secure. But he comes down. Oh shit! There's a really big hole in the window up there. A little childlike thing could get out of that, couldn't it? Oh no! So he confronts Nola, but Nola's not happy. It doesn't go well. He comes out, but our boy's out there. Frank's out there. We've already seen that that Raglan has got a 38 special revolver. He's got that. He's already put it in his pocket. Once he saw that picture and get everybody out, he's gone to his drawer and got that out, loaded it in his pocket. Yeah. So, like, Frank goes for him. Listen, my daughter's here. She's been abducted. Those things must be here. I've heard about these disturbed kids. Nola's children. Raglan explains to him, my treatment has worked. The Shape of Rage. I wrote this book. He became famous on this book, this concept. My treatment, my radical treatment, revolutionary. It makes the inner rage a physical thing, be it a manifestation of abscesses and sores on the body, but then they can work through it and get it removed. Although we've seen that that's not always the case, because our friend with all that going on didn't work for him, did it? And it didn't work for poor Michael, because he's covered in all these warts again now that he's been kicked out of this place. So he said, look, but Nola's different. Nola, they are her children. Don't be that. I'm not listening to this. They're not her kids. They are. She's given birth to the children of her rage. What an enormously great concept that is. Literally, it's like Forbidden Planet. It's like, the monsters from the id. It's her inner rage. So that's why they're not born, as such. She creates them, as we will find out. And so he says, look, if Candace is here, then she's upstairs, because that's where they live. That's where all her brood live. The brood, the title. So he's like, look, well, I'm going to go get it. No, you can't go in there, because they'll kill you. They'll probably kill me. They'll kill anyone that angers Nola. He said, look, the only way we're going to sort this out now, you go in there and you talk to Nola. Don't forget, he hasn't seen Nola for quite some time, obviously. And although she wants the family back together, she doesn't trust him. He hates her. She's committed psychic murders via her brood, Go in there, keep her happy, just talk to her. Well, why can't you do it? Oh, it's gone too far for that now. She won't talk to me again. I can't talk to her. You go in there, keep her happy. So long as she's not angry, I'll be able to walk in there and go and pick up Candace and bring her back out. And we're okay. Go in there. I'll wait 30 seconds after you go in that door and talk to her. Now, this, folks, is the scene that everyone was throwing at me. And I knew they would, because this is an absolutely pant-wetting bloody sequence of pure suspense. Can't lay claim that Cronenberg is a master of suspense. He's a master of ideas, of visuals, of concepts, of brainstorming, of visual excess. And his films may be scary in their overall theme and concept, but in actual scenes of terror, he doesn't really deliver them. I love Cronenberg stuff, but again, I don't think he delivers in turn, because you don't really care about the characters. Although I find that I do care about these characters. And this sequence, all of a sudden, the guy who's realised, oh shit, I'm responsible for this. My treatment friggin' well works, but it works too damn well. And I've created monsters out of hair. Now I'm going to have to go and do the right thing and be the hero. And Oliver Reed is magnificent in this sequence. So he's got to go up there. Now, you know as well as I do, you've already seen two of these, and one's been, well, you've seen one get killed, and then you've seen two others. But we know there's more. We know. So, Frank goes in to try and keep Nola happy. Samantha Eggar, brilliant, a great Hollywood royalty, Samantha Eggar. And to have been in this movie, and to have performed the way that she does, and she swears, she F's and blinds, and Frank tries to keep her calm, but she's like, you shouldn't be here. But I'm in isolation. I shouldn't see you. What do you want? I want us to be back together again. I want us to be a family again. After all the fighting that he's done about this, she's like, no, you don't. You've got someone else now, meaning the teacher. He says, no, there's no one else. There's only us, the three of us, you, me, and Candy. That's it. That's our family. But Frank, I've moved on now. So many strange things have happened since I came here. I've left that old life behind. I'm not even sure I can explain to anyone from that old life what's happening to me. He said, well, I want to be part of your new life. Me, Candy, the three of us together. And he's trying to keep her calm. In the meantime, Raglan's gone upstairs. He's gone into the dormitory. He's flipped the light on. Rows of bunks. As he walks in there, you can see the brood are all there, and there's a lot of them. Someone is lying there, someone is slumped against walls, these horrible misshapen faces, but no emotion, they're watching. Well, they've got no eyelids, so they can't sleep anyway, they're just watching. And Kate, when he finds Candy, he finds it like lying on a bunk, and there's one of them, she's sort of spooned with one of them, but there's one sitting on the end of the bunk as well, keeping watch, and it sits up, when he comes there. But nothing's happening yet, everything's still nice and calm, horribly suspenseful, and these things are truly hideous, and we know what they're capable of. Oh yeah, you may think they're kids, but oh dear God, you've seen the violence, because as he explains to Frank, they're the children of her rage, so that's all they are. When she gets angry, they go into motion, and it's just pure, coordinated, and yet frenzied rage. So untargeted, but completely on a victim, and they will just devastate that victim completely. Anyway, so he wakes her up. Candy. Is it time for school? No. Your daddy's downstairs. Let's go and see him. Your daddy's downstairs. Picks her up like that. He's got her under his arm. Come on. And he's going to try and walk out slowly. Back down below, Frank's making a bit of a hash of keeping Nola calm, because Nola wants to show him what her new life and this new journey she's on is doing to her. And she raises her gown, and we see this, not only are there stigmata like warts and pustulent wounds on her, but there's a great big sort of fetal egg sac on her thigh, and like externally growing, and inside it you can see a little misshapen fetus growing in there. And of course Frank's like, oh God, it's a huge moment of like a rising crescendo of like shock. You're like, oh God, Cronenberg's body horror goes to a whole new level with this. And then she opens this amniotic sac, and blood and goo ooze all over the place, and then she breaks it open and she takes out her new child, And then in a rather long and unpleasant scene, begins to lick the blood and all the fluid off this thing. And of course, Frank's just like, he's trying to keep a lid on it, but he's utterly horrified by this. And she sees it and she's going, no, I disgust you. I sicken you. And he's like, no, it's, everything's, nothing to see here. Everything's fine. Everything's calm. Love you. And she's like, no, it's lies. And of course, now all of a sudden, upstairs, you're hearing, because some of these are now, they're waking up. The rage, the tick-tock alarm of rage has suddenly awoken them. And they're all sitting up now. And they're jumping off the bunks. And he's got Candy in his arm. And he's got the revolver out. And Oliver Reed's trying to make it slowly out of this dormitory. The door's a long way off. And the kids are all dropping down in front of him. Oh, it's gone wrong, hasn't it? Oh, dear God. And then suddenly, rage down below. Rage. She's like, I disgust you. You don't want me at all. And I'm like, yeah, I sicken you. And like, this is my baby. You don't like any of this. And he's like, no. Oh, that's it. The Brood, en masse, attack. They leap onto Oliver Reed. They're pounding, they're beating, their little beaks, they're biting and tearing and ripping at him. He manages to get the gun free. He scoots Candy away. Run, get out the door. Bang, blows a couple away. Bang, another one away. Welters of gore flying out of these things. But the sheer weight of numbers overpowered him. They beat him down to the ground. Oh, God. And then down below, you've got Nola still confronting Frank. And then she realizes, you came here to take it away from me. You came to take Candace away from me, our daughter away from me. I'll kill her before I let you do that. Oh God, no. This poor little girl, she's witnessed murders. She's seen these demonic things. She's had to put up with them for God knows how long. The sinister malevolence of these aggressive little bastards. Because bastards is what they are. They have no father. They are pure bastards. And like suddenly, this mob just begin to turn on her and start converging. Oh God, this poor little girl. I'll kill her before I let you take her away from me. These are hearing that, so kill Candy. Candy gets in this little a sort of storeroom, a plywood door. She flips a little latch on it. They begin pounding on it. Their hands are bloodied from destroying Oliver Reed. Their hands are all gutted, so blood stains everywhere. They begin to punch through this flimsy plywood door. Their hands are coming through. The poor girl is holding the door shut. And so she's a 5-year-old girl screaming her head off. And his hands are coming through and pulling her. Oh God, folks, Jesus Christ. I'm just relaying it to you, and I'm feeling traumatized now just discussing it. And quickly, Frank Carver down below goes for Nola, and he squeezes the life out of her neck, and he's like, and she's screaming and hollering, and he's like, and then she's gasping, and then she's dead. Poof. So the kids, the Brood, the matriarch has been destroyed, the power's gone. Don't know how this all is relatable, but the kids all collapse dead. Frank legs it up there. He sees the bloodied remains of Dr. Hal Raglan, Oliver Reed. Bursts open the door and he finds there's Candy in the corner, just like that. Gets his coat around her. Oh, come on, you're safe now. I'm going to take you home. Gets her in the car. He drives off, and you think you've got the happy ending. But Cronenberg ain't going to leave you with a happy ending like that. Because if anything, the cyclic nature of what he's dealing with here, the cyclic nature of child abuse creates, not always, but it can create in the abused child grows up to become an abusive parent themselves. The cyclic nature of abuse and violence and bullying goes on and on and on. And so she's in the car next to him, and the camera comes down her traumatized face, and it drifts down her arm, sleeves rolled up, and we can see already down in her forearm are these two pustulant sort of sores beginning on her arm, clearly implying that whatever powers Nola had, it's now been passed on to Candy. Jesus Christ, folks, this film is another ordeal, but one that's well worth taking. It's a troubling film. It's a hugely personal movie. Cronenberg's earlier movies were always condemned by the cold bleakness and his lack of empathy with the characters. I mean, you understood their stories, you understood what the plight was, but you didn't really care about them. Now, in this movie, I know that the critical response to it was pretty bad at the time, but in later years, critics have warmed to it and said that this was the turning point for him, because although The Dead Zone was the one, the Christopher Walken, the Stephen King adaptation, was the one that brought him to a more mainstream audience and garnered him far better reviews than it had before, and opened the gates to the likes of Dead Ringers and The Fly, and of course, well, then he'd go on to Naked Lunch and Crash, and he'd go and cut controversy all over again. Good on you, Dave. That's what we love you for. But without a doubt, in The Brood, you do care. You've got, bizarrely enough, the character you really warm to most of all is Oliver Reed. Now that's because of the grand stature of his acting abilities. Yes, he could be OTT. Yes, he could end up playing Oliver Reed, just having a good time in a movie. But when he's good, when he's on fire, he is magnificent. Absolutely top caliber. And his performance here, the way he drifts in sort of comical scenes, I suppose, when you know who Oliver Reed is, and you see him drifting, playing the daughter, playing the father, playing the mother, playing whatever. His voice doesn't change. He's still got that same understated, subtle, impeccable menace in his voice. That soft sort of delivery. And but he's playing, and his dialogue, it's comical because we know he's drifting out of characters to keep his patients in the zone and drag out their inner angst. And but then his conversations with Frank, then his sort of his denial of what's going on, and then his final realization of what is happening. And right, look, this is my fault. I'm going to have to make this sacrifice. You go in there, you keep her calm. I'll go and get your daughter. I'll get this. We'll do this. Just keep her calm and it'll work. And his performance in that pivotal sequence of getting Candy out of there, but ending up getting completely demolished in the process, he's magnificent. And Cronenberg's brilliance with suspense in this movie, the killings by these horrible little brutes are astonishingly nasty. And the killing in the school classroom, oh God, it's harrowing. Because you've got these kids. I don't know how Cronenberg did this. I don't know how he got away with it, in fact. And there's a lot of sort of shots and elements of children in this movie which you would not get made now. Frank takes pictures of his daughter's back as evidence with a Polaroid camera. So you've got little, Cindy Hines, is it? Playing this girl, 5-year-old girl, who is topless, and he's taking pictures. And she's in a window, like a bay window, so people outside could in the context of what's going on, there's nothing wrong with it. But you know as well as I do that scene would not get made today. The scenes of her in the bath would not get made today. They just wouldn't. But Cronenberg was dealing with his own fractured, distorted view of what families are, and how his terrible plight during his custody battle affected him. And he was looking at it in his Cronenberg film director, filmmaker, cold, bleak, analytical sort of observational sort of stance. But the emotions are in there. This is one hell of an angry movie. It's although a lot of the time, apart from the killings, it's very understated, it's very subtle. But the real angst and the coldness and the bleak, not just the setting, but the bleak sort of feel of characters and what they're going through, permeates all. And it does leave you kind of shuddering and isolated and full of your own sort of angst as well. That's how powerful this movie is. I think it's a sensational movie. Cindy Hines, who plays this young girl, oh God, the things that she must be witnessing on the set, the stuff that's taking place, her character has to go through, the directions that she's taken from Cronenberg and other people who must be around it, advising it, no matter how safe they try to make the environment for it. You look at her face, you look at her traumatized reactions to things, the way she sits just docile. Even if the ending of the film had not revealed that she's possibly carrying on the curse, the plague, the virus, the whatever that Nola had, and it was a happy ending, how happy could that ever be? How could she ever recover from what she's witnessed? How could Frank ever recover from that? Frank, Art Hindle, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, oh God, he's in The Void as well recently, The Void, the Lovecraftian film The Void. He's a strange actor, I think. He's very emotionless. But again, I think that's part of what Cronenberg does. He doesn't want anyone to extol any major facial emotions and fly into rage, apart from when obviously he's confronting Samantha Eggar, Nola. Their big conversation is clearly full of, rife with anger and rage, fear and loathing. And only then did he explode. But Art Hindle, I've seen reviewers saying that he just completely wouldn't, he doesn't betray any emotion despite all the things he's going through. I think he does. But I think what he's doing, and I think why Cronenberg chose him, is that you can see he's upset by things, but his face doesn't crack really. His eyes show a fair bit more. But the point of it is, he's keeping it all reined in, and he's doing it on purpose. One can only think that that's how Cronenberg was throughout the court custody battle and his divorce, his powerfully devastating divorce, that he was keeping things reined in the whole time because he had to. So he was, Art Hindle as Frank Carver is portraying David Cronenberg. That's how I view it anyway. And I could be wrong, but I think for me watching it, that's how I view it, and I think it works. He's a man who's keeping it all in because he knows he may have a huge court case, in front of him, and if he loses the plot, he loses his daughter, and that's just the way it's going to be. It's funny how his wife can lose the plot completely, but still regain all the rights, and that's the complete absurd sort of rules and jurisdictions and legalities of these things. Morals don't seem to play any part in it, and common sense just gets thrown out the window. So that's what Cronenberg's trying to put across in the context of a very bizarre, brutal, dark, disturbing horror fable. I mean, it's a fable that people are going through. They're not creating little monsters outside of their own bodies, little id monsters of their own rage, but they're creating monsters of tension, of fear, of regret, of loss, of guilt, anger, suspicion. These are all monsters which end up destroying families. So the film has a very powerful, potent message, and it's a hugely, in-your-face metaphor as well for familial disintegration. So I think, folks, The Brood is a truly astonishingly effective movie. It's only short, sharp shock. Not a high body count, but the body count scenes are incredibly aggressive and powerfully upsetting. As I say, you see kids, or what look like kids, committing murder in a classroom on a grown-up in front of other kids, and then abducting a child. Well, I don't know. I've fought to try to put the words across to you how emphatic and powerful that entire sequence is, and I don't think I've done it justice, because even with Cronenberg's sort of coldly observational stance for filmmaking wise, the feeling and the dread and the upset and the rage that you feel, whether you know of real life incidents or not. I mean, the Jamie Bulger case was years in the future from this point, but I saw this when I was a kid and it troubled me then. So I don't see how anyone could ever view that sequence dispassionately and go like, well, it's just a killing, you know, in a very relatively tame horror movie from the 70s. No, it's much more than that. Cheers, folks. Howard Shore's score is playing now. Edgy, horrible, jangling, discordant, as a lot of his scores were pre-Lord of the Rings. It's hard to believe that Howard Shore, who was the regular composer for David Cronenberg from the early tenure, very strange, atonal, you know, soundscapes he created, especially for the likes of Videodrome and that, and Scanners. But he would then go on to some of the most colourful, epic, grandiose, tragic, full of timbre and rich in character scores ever for the Lord of the Rings trilogy for Peter Jackson. How did that happen? You know? And of course for Peter Jackson for King Kong as well. How did he go from such small little 10-piece ensembles for strings, you know, and then go on to the huge 124 strong, you know, orchestras? Fantastic stuff. The killings, I say, are brutal. The performances are all, they're good. They are good, if not great. But I've explained why some people don't like the performances. They feel I don't have any empathy for them. But I think, or I personally do, I understand what's going on. I understand the restrained nature. I get all that. And for me, it works. It's a very, very disturbing film. And I love it. And for all you guys that said The Brood, oh, that scene where he's got to get the kid out of the room full of all the little monsters. I am totally with you. The suspense, the tension, the realisation that, shit, this has gone wrong. And the door's over there, but there's so many of these and I've only got 6 shots. And you think, oh, kids, you're going to stomp on them. No, they are only kids in their size and stature. They're monsters of someone's colossal rage. How are you ever going to defeat that? How? You're just not going to do it, are you? And of course, Dr. Raglan suffers for his own, I would say art, but his own science. So, funnily enough, Felix Siller, who played Tweaky in Buck Rogers in the 25th Century, Tweaky, Billy, nice one, Buck, you know, all that kind of shit. Like, he was an Italian actor and stuntman, little person. He and another guy, who was another stunt person, played the 2 main creatures, brood members. The ones that do the killings that you see in the houses, the separate killings, and the ones that lead little Candy up the snowy, wasteful street. But the rest of them was a Montreal children's gym class who would just put the masks on and all that, and the hoods up. But massively effective. Them jumping off the top bunks and just surrounding, you know, Dr. Raglan, and he's kind of like he's trying to be, you know, like, I've just got to try and nudge through these. No. And when the hissing and the roaring begins and they all begin to jump on him, oh God, you know what's going to happen there. But then you get the extra double whammy of when they're going to turn on the real daughter. They're going to turn on her and she has to run and hide. Oh, that kid goes through so much in this movie. It's staggering. Anyway, folks, for all of those that mentioned The Brood, you came out with an absolute classic. For those who haven't seen The Brood and yet you watched all this video, you don't really need to now, do you? Because I've told you everything about it. But it's a class act. It's low budget, and there's some bits which may frustrate you perhaps. But and there's one tiny sort of pacing issue which I'm not going to come on to. But it's nothing. It's neither here nor there. But you'll probably pick up on it as the film happens when you're watching it. But it's a tiny little gaff, really, where another scene should have took place. But I don't know whether it was cut down for timing reasons. I don't know. But these creatures, these things are truly, truly horrifying. The autopsy sequence is just... the giving birth sequence is... the hammer attacks are just... Oh, no. And the whole abuse of children will not leave you anytime soon. I'm 52. I saw this back when I would be 9, 10. 10, sorry, I was 10 years old, because I could go to cinema back in those days. Oh, the corrupt upbringing, you know, didn't harm me none, no, did it? But it did turn me into a whiskey drinker, like so many of these characters in these movies are. It's a fantastic film. It's Cronenberg's most brutal movie, I think. It's his most personal, and here, I think he said it's his best structured movie as far as horror films are concerned and as far as stories are concerned. And I kind of get what he means. If you look at the likes of Videodrome, you look at the likes of Madame Butterfly, Eastern Promises and History of Violence, except that they're a different genre of movie altogether, although they've clearly got Cronenberg's stamp on them, but they're not this horror, fantasy, sci-fi angle, dark, subversive concepts. But it's the most clearly structured and linear of his movies, I would say, from this huge early period up until The Fly, say. So, anyway, folks, The Brood. One good scare for Halloween. And this has got plenty in it. It's just... Anyway, folks, I am, and always will be, Kilt-Man. So please, do it for me. Keep it kilted, keep it Celtic. Be happy, all. Don't trust little brutes with their hoods up, the snow parkers on. They ain't kids, no. In fact, you know, truth be told, kids are monsters. But you all knew that, didn't you? I'm going to see you all laters. It's got no navel. No what? Belly button.